Maximo Ghosts to Glory has been on my radar ever since I got it from a retro game store employee.
Hey, you want free stuff? Yes, I love garbage.
But now that I think about it, I actually did have an encounter with Maximo years beforehand. Imagine child me looking at a game at a bargain bin. Nah. Nah.
Oh no, this is great.
And then I never thought twice about it. Did I accidentally miss a gem by passing up the sequel to Ghouls and Ghosts? Was Little about right in tossing that game into the trash? Let's find out. Big old spoiler warning here. We're going to be covering this whole game, including hints and tricks that will help you in beating this game. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into Maximo Ghosts to Glory.
Before we get into anything, here we need to talk about this type of game. This isn't your typical PlayStation 2 walk in the park. To beat this game, you need to be hardcore. This game will put your precise platforming and reactions to the test. It very much mimics the old style of games you usually saw in the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis era, including the limited use of continues. And that also includes tricks, instant death pits, and even making modern mechanics more scarce, like saving or getting additional temporary health for your character. Now, Maximo Ghosts to Glory follows quite the basic storyline where you got this douchebag Achilles that steals Maximo's princess, Sophia, and uses the power of this staff that is never explained to control the undead from the underworld. The Grim Reaper, easily the best character in the game, tells Maximo that he will not die while he has this death coin, and to go save 4 sorceresses that will assist Maximo to help him kill that douchebag Achilles, because he is causing a hole in his underworld and stealing his job by taking all of the undead. And that's all the story you're getting until you're about 80% in the game. I have to say right now, there's something about the early PlayStation 2 titles with what I like to call over-animation. It really hits the sweet spot and I just love it. Also, hearing this Grim Reaper speak really reminds me of another certain Grim Reaper from a game I played.
What? Not afraid of death?
There are worse things than death.
True, true. Things like that.
And how many Grim Reapers have you met before, mate? What am I supposed to look like?
Right into the first levels, you can actually directly compare this game to its predecessors. The style of enemies, the health bar mechanics, and the feel of the levels all seem like it would be right at home in the Ghouls and Ghosts world, easily. One thing to note is that the game actually does not have a tutorial. Some may see it as a good thing, but this game actually throws all mechanics to you at once. Granted, it's mostly simple stuff like jumping and attacking, but then you have this skill bar down here, which it doesn't really explain, and you also have these blue fairies. That wasn't explained either. And this is where you pop open the manual. For this game, I think it's essential to have this manual, not just for the mechanics, but for other parts of the game as well. I found myself returning to the manual throughout the playthrough when the game didn't really explain certain things. I found the platforming and combat to be pretty simple other than a few instances where they throw a left hook. A certain detail I really like is that your sword, if it doesn't have enough room, will actually hit the wall or burrow itself into the wood, and it does make you play more strategically to avoid it, and I think that's a nice touch. Now let me ask you a question. How many times can you remix the same tune? A lot, apparently. I'll be honest, that I really think they should have improved on the music here. I actually don't remember any other music other than the Ghouls and Ghosts tune remix. Now, that aside, I really like the sound effects my character made with hitting enemies and feeling the weight of jumping. And really, you shouldn't underestimate how much of an impact these effects can make. Making your sword connect against an enemy, and not only seeing the hit and reaction, but also hearing it. It's quite satisfying to say the least.
Now, I can't say this is a sequel to Ghouls and Ghosts without talking about the difficulty, and I'll put this out in the open right now and say this game is not as hard as its previous titles. This is not to say that it isn't hard, but I thought I should share that first.
I do find that the difficulty is artificially raised from all of the pitfalls that will be instant deaths, and from the fact that continues costs us more death coins every time you hit continue twice. While I'm personally not a fan of artificial difficulty, I won't lie and say I didn't feel the pressure from these instances when you are only sitting at one life and you do not have enough death coins for a continue. There is also a raised difficulty for making you pay for saves at 100 coins a save, or earning them after boss fights in which you choose between that save, full armor, and a kiss. Speaking of these kisses, these will replace your locked skills voluntarily, and they don't do anything until you collect all 4 and beat the game. And also use up those valuable locked skill slots, making this game just that much harder after you die. Bosses in this game feel really lackluster to me compared to the more daunting levels and enemies. None of them really took more than a couple of tries to figure out what to do, and after that it was really easy to take them down. There really isn't much to talk about here other than this certain guy's design. I don't know why, but I just love it. The last boss also has a neat mechanic in it where you're basically fighting it in the dark. I also think that's cool. I would like to quickly mention the art and level design for a moment. Each area had a unique theme that makes up each of the 5 areas. I could tell you the difference between the areas, but the levels that reside within the areas themselves are very similar to one another, and they don't really stand out. Out of all the levels, I believe the 4th area was the hardest overall, with many more death pits than usual. As for the art, I believe this game tried to match the Ghouls and Ghosts style, but overall, I don't really think it captured the charm of the originals. But I did think it did an okayish job if you don't really bother to compare them. In a way, it's not really ugly, but I don't really find myself remembering anything significant that made me go, exquisite. So overall, meh. So after saving all 4 sorceresses, you go back to Maximo's castle to fight the big baddie himself. These last levels actually were probably the most fun for me since they involved a lot more traps, and a more methodical thinking than previous levels. Achilles himself wasn't too hard, and I only died a couple of times.
You're probably wondering what these kisses get you after all this? Well, it's a gallery. And normally I wouldn't be so angry about this, but if you beat the game, remove the kisses, and then save again, you lose that gallery.
This feels more like a punishment than a reward, and is not really worth it for the increased difficulty these kisses bring, and I would definitely not recommend doing it.
Now after you beat Achilles and save Sophia, what can we do after?
Well, if you were smart, unlike me, you should have a good arsenal of locked skills at your disposal, and it's time to attempt to master this game. In each level, you actually do get a mastery score. This 100% score is determined by getting all the treasure in the level. This includes everything excluding the drops enemies give and those rings where you have to buy stuff. You also need to kill all the enemies, and all of this progress will save when you beat the level, so you don't need to collect it all in one go. I'm not gonna lie, this is where I decided to bail because the amount of effort needed to do it.
Let me explain myself. In order to 100% these levels, you need to find a whole bunch of hidden chests. Now, you do have a skill that kind of acts like a metal detector, but you really do need a guide unless you want to pretty much stab all of the ground. Even if you find all of the hidden chests, I still find myself ending up getting a 99% mastery, even in the first level. After 2 hours, I basically said screw it, and went back to staring at cooking videos on YouTube.
I also said I had a tip for people, didn't I? Well, if you find yourself getting low on death coins, the first level actually has 2 lives in it. One is behind the bars where you can cross from a breakable wall shown in this gameplay. and there is another in a hidden chest by the last gate. Doing this a few times will make sure you don't ever run out of lives.
Maximo Ghosts to Glory is an interesting title that I feel is a challenging game, but a simple and enjoyable one that I find people can include as a more difficult title in their PlayStation 2 libraries. Even though this game has its flaws in design and sound, I will recommend that people finish this game, but not complete it. But with all that in mind, Maximo will have a spot in my game collection.
Thank you all so much for watching my video on Maximo Ghosts to Glory. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can also view my previous video where I talk about Katamari Damacy. I also stream all of these games on twitch.tv/BaoPlaysLive. See you next time.